So today we will talk about Streamlit and how we can install Streamlit, how we can use Streamlit. Everything about Streamlit we are going to cover today. Let me open up the deck. So any one of you have you guys tried or used Streamlit before? Anyone has any exposure to Streamlit before we start discussing?
I
Uh,
have used it, but I never learned
mm-hmm.
how it is because they give me just some assignment and there's string details in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can anyone define what is Streamlit? What for it is being used? All right, we will start now. So Streamlit is basically it's an open source Python based library, right? For example, we have libraries like Pandas, we have NumPy, and we have other libraries. Similarly, we have a Python library which is being called as Streamlit. And what is the use of this Streamlit Python library? With the help of this Python library, what we can do is we as a data scientist, we can also create some user interfaces, right? Although we are not the person who are supposed to work on the UI part, because usually we have a different team who will build the user interface for our application. But still, couple of times what happens is we need to show something, whatever functionality we have written to our stakeholders, maybe my manager, maybe our client or stakeholders. So in that case, instead of showing a code which is running in your VS Code or your Google Colab file, what we as a data scientist can do is we can build user interface very quickly with the help of Streamlit. So Streamlit is usually is used to create POCs, which we show to our clients or our colleagues, right? It's basically help us to quickly develop some user interface, right, with our intended backend and to run the functionality basically. Okay, so that's the main purpose. But there are applications where there are instances where Streamlit based user interfaces are also used in the production, but most of the time it is not being used in the production. This is only for the, showing these kind of POCs basically. Okay. So why Streamlit is being chosen to be used to develop the user interface? Because first of all, it's an open source and it's very because of its simplicity and usability, it it basically is made of different components. For example, read CSV is a component, right? So it has a lot of widgets or components which can also be customized, and it's very easy to run this piece of code. It's deployment friendly, and more importantly, it's data science oriented. What does that mean? As a data scientist, couple of times what we need to do is we need to show the data on the screen. For example, you can see just this two line of codes help us to show or create this line chart. Just we have done is we have just imported this library, and this is st.write, which says my first app hello world, and then I am reading a .csv file on from a local machine, and this PD, which is pandas will read the file, and with the help of just one line st is your streamlit dot line chart, I can display that data frame on the screen. Okay, so they have lot of plugins or widgets, or we can say components, which are being created keeping data scientist in the mind. There are a lot of data visualization tools which are present in this library. Okay, that is the main reason why Streamlit is very, very much popular these days. Anyone has any questions? So we'll see how to run it, how to deploy it, right? Everything we will learn today. And in this particular session, what we're going to do is we will cover the installation and setup, and then the core components of the Streamlit. What are Streamlit chat components? How to stream the chat in the Streamlit, how the data flow happens in the Streamlit, how to manage the session, what is the use of it, why we should consider putting some of the variables in the session state, what are callback functions, what is cache, and then GUI based assistant. All good so far, everyone? Okay, so before actually, let me show you the its website as well. So if you simply click on Streamlit, this is streamlit.io, and if you go to the docs part, you will see there are a lot of tutorials, API reference, conceptual elements, concepts, basically architecture, how does it work? Okay, so these are the different elements. Basically, we have write and magic elements. If I click on that, I can see there is something called st.write, write stream, magic. They have a lot of components. Text elements, st.header. Okay, and these are the chart elements, right? So that's what I was saying. They are more data scientist oriented. You can create these charts with just a single line of code. You can create these area charts, bar charts, line charts, okay, scatter plots, such, I mean, they have developed the library in such a way that it can basically create any kind of charts. Matplotlib, it supports Matplotlib, and you can see the complexity of these chart, right? PyDAC. So this is basically very rich in all these things. There is something called as chat elements, which we will discuss today. It has like st.chat input. So if you are creating any applications which is more like chatbot kind of applications or conversational application, so they have created these components for that. And that's what exactly we need, right? When we talk about generative AI or conversational AI chatbots or applications, what we want chat GPT kind of user interface, right? Where we will ask some questions and LLM will respond and then the conversation will go on. Okay. So you can go through this website, right? And you can explore. Right now, let me open VS Code to show you how we can get started, how we can do installation. This is LangChain. Let me go through the folder itself. Let me create a new folder. Okay. All right. My first step, as usual, is to create a virtual environment. Let me do that real quick. So it's Python minus mvenv. Let's say 1. Now I need to activate this environment. Got activated. So my first step is to install pip install Streamlit. That's it. This will help me installing the library. Let's also install Python. Oh, sorry, not Python, pandas. So with today's session, I think we will be done with the foundation part. Next week onwards, we will be deep diving into things which are very particular about the generative AI. What is RAG basically, which is at its core. We'll study about RAG and then advanced RAGs, and then we will start studying agents, right? Come on. Let's discuss something else. So when we talk about its core component, we have seen this one. So what we need to do, we need to install it. We need to create a basic Streamlit, and then we have to run our application. Is it done? Yes, it's done. So my Python Streamlit library is done. Let me create a file. Let's say it's app.py file. Import it as st. So they have basically different types of components, as I said, right? We have seen in the documentation as well. So these are different type of components. So let's talk about what are those components, or maybe I will finish this particular thing. So I will simply say st.title CSV file uploader. Okay, so once I finish my code, what I can do is I can come back to my terminal. I can simply say streamlit run app.py file. Okay, so right now I just have one statement, which is like title. When I run this command, what will happen is this app will start running on my local host port number 8501. Okay, so now you can see with just one piece of line, I can create an application which says CSV file uploader. Okay, so gradually what we will do is let's add more and more components. The different components, let's say I need to write something, I need to click create a button on the click of which some action will happen. Maybe I can create some sidebar so that I can show some options in the left hand side, just like the chat GPT. In the chat GPT, you will see right in the left hand side, it basically shows you the different threads of the conversations which you have done in the past. So you can create some sidebars. Your main space, you can create some tables. You can create some components which can take user input. You can create chat boxes, all those things. Okay, so let's have a look on all of those one by one. So this is some documentation which is being created so that, so this installation part we have done. What we need to do is pip install Streamlit, import st.title. You can write some simple commands, and in the terminal you have to write Streamlit run app.py file. Good enough. Now let's talk about the core components. What are its core components? In the core components, we have the first one. The heading is how to display some text on the screen. Right. So I have some components like st.title, which will show that title on the screen. If you want to create some headings, you can use st.header, st.subheader, right? So you can use these st.title, header, and subheader to write something on the screen. For example, let me take all these things. Okay, and on this one, let me always rerun. So you can see, welcome to my AI app. This is my title and this is my header. So if I put something in subheader, what will happen? Here I have not shown. Maybe I can try st dot subheader model predictions. Let's go back to my UI. So you can see the font size has been decreased. So this is just like HTML, right? You can just play around and you can see how the different widgets works. Let's move to the st.text. This will also write something on the screen. So you can try that. Now this is being written in the normal text font basically. This is the basic text in your app. Okay, so all these you can use to write or present something on the your screen. Let's say what I need to do is I need to take some input from a data frame. Let's see how we can do. So there is something called, this is fine, pandas dot data frame, and the first column and the second column I'm defining these values. And what I'm doing is, once this data frame has been defined, I am just writing the data frame. Now Streamlit is smart enough to pass this data frame and show it on the screen. Let's see how it looks like. So on the screen you can see it has populated that table. That data frame has been showed on the screen now. Okay, are you with me, guys? You have not been talking. So it's very simple language. You can say the syntax is very friendly and you can quickly develop these applications. Good enough? Yes, no? Are you there, guys? I have been talking.
Yeah, this
Yes,
is
yes,
good.
Surendra.
Yes.
Superb. So let's see. First, we talked about how to show the things on the screen, write something on the screen, on the application itself for the user. Now, if you want to take some input from the user, right? Maybe if there is a button, you want the user to click on that button and you want to perform some action, you can simply write st if st dot button, then it should write on the screen button clicked. Okay, if the user clicks, then it should show button clicked. Let's see. You can see this button now, and on the top of button, it's written like click me. Why? Because I say st dot button. This is name of my the name of the text which is shown on the button itself. So if I click on that, it will show me the button clicked. Okay. So this is to take some input from the user and do perform some action on after that particular button click. And let's say there is another way to take input that is called slider. So I just want to show you as many examples I can show. Rest you can play around. The documentation is also very clean, neat and clean. Okay. So what this piece of code is doing, this is basically st.title. That's fine. Now there is something called st.slider. Okay. So it will show me a slider, slide where I can choose any value between 1 to 10 with the gap of 2, and that will basically be assigned, that value the user select will go to the power, and this power is basically x to the power something, right? Y is equal to x square is our function. So based on the value the user chooses, it will create a graph of y equal to x square. Good enough. Let's go to the screen. Here it is. Now the user can select any value between 1 to 10 with the gap of 2. So y equal to x square. Right now, the default value is 2. So this is the graph of y equal to x square. So if I change it to, let's say, x4, the graph will automatically change. So this is one way to take user input, basically, right? So you can think of any example. For example, if you're doing, you know, the number of instruments or maybe number of patients. You can ask user to select those number of patients or number of some uh, sensors, right, which are taking some readings. So, and you can do something on that. Okay, so this graph is being displayed by taking input from the user. Okay, so this is another way. First one was the button, and this is, and the other is like text input. This is name st.text input, enter your name, and then what it will do is whatever name you type, it will assign it to the name and it will write on the screen. Simple, simple, just like HTML. Right. So I say Surendra, what happened? Surendra, so it will say hello Surendra. Okay. Very basic, very simple. So we have seen two type of components. One is how to show something on the UI, and second, how to take user input. Now, how to do data visualization, right? Because this is very rich. So let's try to draw some map. There is something called as the map component. So if I, so what it is doing is again a data frame, which will take some values and this latitude and longitudes. And these are latitudes and longitude of some location in the US. If you put some Hyderabad or Bangalore location, it will show that location in the map. So let's see how the st.map works. So if I go, so it will show me all the different locations, right, of the coordinates or the longitude, latitude, which I selected in the code itself. Right. So, I mean, this is just to show you there is something called as a map as well, st.map, which can help you to show the geographic location. There is something called as a line chart. This we have seen in the deck at the very first slide of the deck. Let's go. So what is it? There are X and Y coordinates. Some line graphs are being drawn. Okay. Now, next is they are very rich that you can even integrate your AI ML models also. So I will just copy paste this code and explain you what it is. But this will take some time. We need to install this library, transformers library, or maybe you can try this at your home. I will share this code. Okay. So it will take some time. It basically download or install the transformers library. We talked about Hugging Face, right? So Hugging Face is basically a platform where there are a lot of models and lot of data is there. So you need to install that library, transformers library, and the torch. And this piece of code will do what? We will use this pipeline from the transformers library. This will load the T5 model. Okay. For example, which is called as the summarizer. Pipeline, the task is summarization. The model is T5 base. Once the summarizer is created, okay, here we are doing load model. It will call this function. It will load this model and it will give us the summarizer as my object. With this object, whatever user puts on the screen, we will pass that input to the this summarizer object. This will, with the help of this model, it will summarize that content and then it will give you the output. Let's try this out. Okay, no issues. It will take time. That's fine. So let me create another file, app1.py. Let me paste it. So this is my code. I need to do pip install transformers and torch. Let me explain you the code one more time. Okay, so what we are doing is we are using this data model function, and once this page will load, when I run app.py file, First, it will do these imports, and then it will come here. It will see, okay, this function is being called. It will go to the function. It will create a summarizer object with the help of this pipeline, which is from the transformers library. In the pipeline, the syntax is like that. We need to give the name of the task and the model. So our model is T5 base. So it will take the T5 base model, and then it will return the summarizer object. This is the title shown on the screen. And now we have seen there is something called st.text area. Enter, enter text to summarize. So I will copy paste some text. That user input will go where? Once I click on a button called summarize, okay, st dot button. This also we have seen. Once the user click on summarize, this user input will basically, if there is some value in the user input, it will basically be passed to the summarizer object. And these are the parameters. And then it will respond in the form of the summary. Okay, that model will give the summary of the text, whatever text we give as an input, and that will be displayed on the screen. Fair enough. I think code is pretty straightforward. Let it install. Or maybe by that time, let's go to the next part, which is like layouts and the columns. So what you can do is with the help of this layouts and the column, like for example, if I need to break my user interface into some columns, right? Then I can say column 1 and column 2, st.columns as 2. So it will create two parts. I can also give the ratio, in what ratio these columns should be, maybe 4 is to 3. Okay, so in the form of a tuple, I can give this as an input, and then it will create or change the screen into those many parts. Okay, this sidebar, or let me copy paste this one. But this is already running. Okay, so this sidebar will do what? It will create one sidebar like this one. Okay, and the title of that sidebar will be sidebar title, and there is a button inside that which is called click here. Okay, let it finish, and then we will run all these things.
This is P5 model when you said, where we can get it.
So by the time it runs, let's talk more about the other topics. After that, we have seen all these components, right? How to display text on the screen, how to take user input, how to do data visualization, how to run your models as well, how to change the display, how to create the sidebar, all these things. And now there is some interesting thing which I told in the beginning also. So this Streamlit has also come out with the some components which supports the chat functionality, where the user will ask something, that message will be shown on the top, and the response will also be shown. So that conversation is shown beautifully on the screen with the help of these chat components. Okay, so what are these? There are two components. One is the chat message, and other is the chat input. What is chat message will do? It will display a message in the chat interface, and the chat input will basically take the user input in the chat like format. Okay, so this is the piece of code which we will try. Let me see, still running. Let's wait actually, otherwise you won't be able to understand.
Surinder, how can we get the list of models? Means P5 model it was showing, right, for
Yeah, yeah.
summarization. So,
Mm-hmm.
so where we can get the list of those models?
So we can go to the Hugging Face itself. Okay. So So if I go to the models, so there is something called models, right? Data sets,
Mm-hmm.
spaces, community. In the models, all these models are listed here. For example, Quen model. So if you have heard, this is a Chinese model basically. Quen. Just like there was one more model, right, which became very popular. What was that? That Chinese Greek. What was the name?
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek, right? So DeepSeek was
Yeah.
also from the China. Same Quen is also from the China. I think this is from the Alibaba or what? When this is from which company?
Seems like
This is from Alibaba only, right? So they have created
Hmm.
these models, right? So what you can do is based on your requirement, right? So they have given you a couple of filters, how you want to search your model, which you're looking for. For example, you say, I want some 6 billion parameter. That means I'm looking for some model which I can run on my local machine because 6 billion is very small, right? So like that, I can filter. So if I say the model should be between 1 to 6 billion parameters, so it will show you all those models. Okay, this Quen 6 billion parameter, Quen 1.7 billion parameter, right? Microsoft 5.4 mini, all these are Google model, right? JAMA model, right? Google's JAMA model is also very famous. JAMA, T5, all these are Google models. Okay. Other is you can also filter from the task, what you want to do. If you want to do some text to video task, text to video, then these are the models which basically supports all these. If I say text to text, our models usually which we talked about are text to text models, right? Now that multimodal capability has also been added. So they are also called as a multimodal models. They can also generate image at the same time, and we can also do text to text. So all these models are this JAMA. Okay. There are thousands of models basically. So based on your task, you can filter your which library you want to use. For example, right now what we did was we wrote Torch, right? So these models basically support the Torch library. Okay, there is a TensorFlow library as well. Transformers library. So and if you want to from the providers also, for example, Grok. Let me remove these. How I can remove reset parameters, reset
Reset option.
task. Hmm. So if I click on Grok, I will see all the models which are supported by Grok. Why it is 0?
You have selected libraries.
Okay, reset libraries. Okay, so these are models are there on the Grok platform. All these open source models are there on the Grok. So if you go to the Grok as well, you will see all these models. This Meta, Llama, DeepSeek, Gemma, all these models. Okay, other than that, if you already know the name of your model, you can simply write like T5. It will show all the different models from the FLAN T5. FLAN T5 is small, large. Okay, let's say I want to use FLAN T5 is small, then it will show this diagram. It will also show you some code as well. If you scroll down,
So all these models are means is it free of use or is it some charge also associated to this?
so if you want to host your models on this platform, then there is a charge, right? There is a pricing for that. If you want to simply download it, I mean, just like we did it, what it will do is it will download the model, it will download the library, and then we can inference it, right? So this is a kind of platform where these models are hosted. Some models you can download, some models you can directly inference on their platform itself. And if you want to host your own model, that also can be done with the help of this membership. So all options are there basically.
Okay.
Okay, so you can, I mean, usually being in corporate, I just used one model which is being used to create embeddings. Okay, because there was some problem with the embedding model which was hosted on my Azure account. So I just used one embedding model which is there on the Hugging Face. Other than that, we don't, you know, being in the corporate, we don't make much use of these Hugging Face models and all these things. They are basically used by researchers who are in the universities, maybe in the IITs, and they want to build some new model so they can download some data sets for testing, or they can download the existing models which are open source. They can change their code or something like that. Okay.
Surendra, like
Yeah.
if I'm going to use these models
Mm-hmm.
and feed you the input with their what is the privacy concerns? Will be any like it will going to take this data and store somewhere, or it's we can use it
Someone,
without
as I
any
said, no,
doubt?
it depends how you are using. If you're downloading the model, you can just, once it's been downloaded, you can just disconnect your internet and you can start using on your laptop itself if it is small enough, right?
Mhm.
Otherwise, if you are using their, if you are taking these memberships and you are hosting the models, then I think it should be, what do you say? It will be secured. But being in corporate, most of the time people use the models which are from the AWS or Azure because they have lot other offerings also, right? You can basically make use of their database also. I mean, the full infrastructure is available in the Azure and the AWS. Here you will just be able to, host your model. But how you will scale your machines, how if you want to save something in your Redis, where you will deploy your application itself, isn't it? If your application is hosted in the Azure and you are calling a model which is there on the Hugging Face, then also your data will be traveling through the internet, isn't
Traveling.
it? So that's why, for from the corporate perspective, we generally use the models on these cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, or Google, right?
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I mean, I haven't used, right? I just used that embedding model which I was talking about. Okay, that was also for a POC. Other than that, we don't
So basically,
use.
this is they have given an environment where we can host the model, right? Means something like that, right? Means it's a internally they are hosting in some cloud only, right? Azure
Yes, yes.
or
Internet. I
SAP,
mean,
right?
I'm
So
not
they are
sure.
just giving
Maybe they have their own infrastructure also, right? So that's why they are also charging you.
infrastructure.
Yeah, they have the infrastructure where all these
Okay,
things are hosted. All these data sets must be there on some infrastructure, right? So you can also contribute, right? They have a community, right? So it's like an open source platform basically. Just like I think Apache
hmm,
was also similar to this one, right? Where you can
correct.
contribute to the libraries, you can write the code and all that thing. Okay, let's get back to our code. Is it? Yeah, I think this is. Let's try to run what is Streamlit run app 1.py. I will take some text, loading the model. Okay, so this is exactly what which we have written in our this piece of code right here. You could see that spinner because I have defined, st.cache resource and then show spinner loading model, right? So that's why it was showing the loading model kind of thing. And then text summarization app, this we have written somewhere. This is my title. This is the enter text to the summarize. Now I can just paste something, right? There are multiple ways to set up your development environment and install. and there is a button. You can see there is a button. If I click that, what will happen? It will take that input and it will inference with the model. Let's do that. Okay, so the summary is there are multiple ways to set up the development environment and install Streamlit. Developing locally with Python installed on our computer is the most common scenario. Okay. So you can just see how easily in just one file we can inference one model which is there on the Hugging Face, right? Right. So far we have been doing it on our VS Code. Now we are having this UI as well, user interface, where it's asking user to put some text and then summarize. Right. So you can think of some applications or something which you can build for your customer, saying that okay, put something and there is a summarize button. Right. Just like there are some image editing softwares, like, so what they will do, they will say upload your image and we will remove the background or something like that. It will be like remove background, upload the image, remove background, it will go to the model, it will do the editing, it will show to the user. Got it? All right, so that was on how to inference the model, and let's get back to this OneNote. And we also talked about how to create these chat components, right? So there are two components, chat message and chat input. So let's take this piece of code and see how these components are very much relevant to us. Or maybe let me write another app2.py. Okay, so let me explain you. This is very important. So what I'm doing is I am basically importing this you already know. And then there is something called as the session state. Messages not in session state. We will talk about what are sessions basically, what is the session state. But for the time being, just remember that what we are doing is we are checking whether this messages key is there in the session state object or not. The session object is basically a dictionary. It has a lot of key value pairs. And I'm checking if this session state variable is having any key with the name messages. If it is not there, then it will just create one empty list. Okay. Now what it will do is next, for message in the session state dot messages, if there are multiple, so messages itself is also a dictionary. Okay, this session state is a dictionary, and within the dictionary we have a messages dictionary, a list of messages. If there are multiple messages within this messages object, it will basically iterate through. For the first message, it will check if the message role is the user. If it is a user, then it will create st.chat message, user markdown message, and the content. Whatever content which is being associated, that it will show on the screen. Else, if the message is of AI type, then it will show that content as well. Okay, so I will show you on the screen, then it will make more sense. There are some errors, I think, with the indentation. Okay. Okay. Let me run it, then I think it will be easy to explain you. Control C. All right. Now Streamlit run app2.py. We are talking about the chat components. Okay. So this is the chat component. Which one is this? Is it input message or what it is? One is the chat message, other is the chat input. We are taking input from the user. So this one is chat input. Okay. So when we say hi, what it will do is it will create an echo. So right now I don't have any LLM, right, which is being integrated with my application. So I have written that whatever user writes, it should just echo the same thing. So its response is echo hi. If I say hello, it will say echo hello. Right? I'm just emulating if it's like a LLM response. So you can see this chat-like interface has been created. The user messages are being given in this icon, and the AI message are given in this icon, and there is some color difference as well. So this give us the chat-like feeling. Correct? Otherwise, we have to do if we develop this thing in the CSS or HTML, we have to do a lot of things, right? We need to choose the icon, we need to choose the color, need to some kind of table, and then we need to append. But what this Streamlit has done is they have created or written that code already. All we need to do is just use this component. Good enough. Now let's try to understand the code as well, because that's very important. So what I'm doing is, how to explain this? So there is a problem also with the Streamlit. The problem is that whenever you do any operation on the user interface, it basically rerun the entire script from top to bottom. Okay. So if I write something, what will happen? It will go to the first line and it will execute all the things. So whatever buttons I have clicked, whatever messages I have shown on the UI, those will be wiped out and it will execute all the lines again. So in order to retain the values which are there in my user messages, what I will do is I will make use of the session state. Okay, session state is a way to make our data persistent. Otherwise, what will happen? It will, or let's say, instead of this session state, let's say I don't use the session state, and then let's see what happens. Okay, so I will just remove this session state. It's simply a messages list, and let me remove this thing. Let me remove this thing. Okay, any session? No, right? So let's say I simply create a messages list, and whatever messages we have in this list, we are just iterating and we are checking if the role. So what happens is when we write something in our chat input, if user input and the user input is not equal to null, what it will do is we are using chat message, user markdown, the user interface, user input. Okay, messages dot append role as the user, content as whatever user has typed into the text box, that will be set on the content. I said you right. These messages are also key value pairs. So I have two keys. One is the role and other is the content. Whatever user is typing, that will be saved in the content as one dictionary component. Okay. Another dictionary key value pair is a role. I will set the role as a user. For whatever response which I get from my bot, I will set the chat message as role as the bot and content as the bot response. Okay. Now let's try to run this again and see what is the problem. Rerun. So now if I say hi, what will happen? It will say hi, very good. If I say hello, my earlier messages are now gone. The reason being, my script is executing from top to bottom, right? My data is being lost. So in order to avoid that, what I want to do is I have declared this session state. Okay. And this session is whatever I save in my session state, that will remain persistent, that will not wipe out. So my first message when I say hi, it will basically show on the screen, and at the same time it will also save in my session state. I am saving those messages in the session state, saying that st.session state dot messages append this role as the user and the content, and whatever response I get from the AI, that I'm saving as a bot and content as the bot response. Both of these will get appended to my session state. And whenever I'm clicking anything, my script will re-execute. It will come back here and it will see, okay, there are a couple of messages. So these messages will remain persistent because I have added them into the session state. Now, when my screen gets reloaded, it will iterate through all the messages and it will show to the user. Okay, so when I say hello, it will, my first message and the AI response get printed on the screen one more time because they were stored in the session state messages. I'm iterating through all the messages for messages in session state. And if its role is a user, I will display using the chat message user, and if it's else as a AI. सभी को समझ में आया? I hope you were able to understand this. The problem with the Streamlit and how to tackle that problem using session state, which make my data persistent. Whatever values I want to make persistent throughout my application session, I can store them in the session state. Okay? And we have also seen how this chat message and this chat input works. Got it? Chat input. Okay. I had another this topic for session state, but we have covered that in the chat component itself. Anyone has any doubts?
And where it maintain the session, it's a browser session you maintain.
So yes, this is at the browser level. So there are basically two things. One is the session state and other is the cache. Cache, which we will talk in some time. The cache is being used, is saved at the application level. But
Okay.
this is being saved at the user level. Okay. Session.
So here we are not calling the model LLM model, right? As of now.
No. This is just a mock message we are generating by doing the echo. Okay. We have not
Yeah.
integrated it with the. Okay, we will do that also in our coming sessions. So right now we are just learning the components of the Streamlit, and since we also know the LangChain, we also know how to inference the models. We will bring all the information together to create some application. Okay, all of these things coming in the action. Okay, so that was on the components. Okay, give me a second. On my YouTube also, I have this series, right? So there also I try to explain. Okay, so you can try and watch that as well if something is not clear. So let's proceed further and let me see the DAC. We have seen the chat components, chat message and chat input. Now this next is how to stream the data using the Streamlit. Okay, so this is very challenging sometimes. So what they have done is they have created this component also dedicated for streaming. And streaming is important for our chatbot applications. Even in the ChatGPT, when you see, your response is not generated in just one go. As the tokens are generated by my LLM, they are being sent to the user interface, right? Tuck, 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 one by one. So the application does not wait, or it does not let user to wait for entire response to get generated and shown in just one go. Rather, as the tokens are generated by LLM, they are streamed to the user. Clear, guys? So let's see, let's try to replicate how that streaming basically is done with the help of this component. Okay, so let me copy this example. Okay, we are doing the same thing. If message is not in session state, create an empty message key, and then there is another function which will basically try to emulate what a LLM does, right? LLM generates the words token by token. Correct? The same thing we are doing. This, I think, indentation problem. Okay. So this function does what? It takes some user input, and then, for example, this is some text I have taken from the Wikipedia regarding Jodhpur, the second largest city. And what this function will do is this will take this response, this multi-line these multi-line variable lines are saved in the response variable, and I'm splitting the response variable with the space. So in order to emulate the different tokens in the LLM, right? We have seen in the LLM, right? It's basically in text input and output machine. It takes the tokens as an input and it generates the next most probable word one by one, right? If it produces the first token, it will go back in the input and then it will generate the next token and so on and so forth. So our intention is how we can use Streamlit to show the streaming. Guys, these are very much relevant topics which nobody teaches, right? So I'm taking this much pain because I know these are practically being useful once you are in the industry. Right? If you are building an application, your manager will say, can you show me the streaming? Right? Can you make this conversational? Right? So in order to make this as a streaming application, we are just written some mock function, which will take all these sentences and it will split them into different words or tokens. And for each token or for each word, it will sleep for some 0.01 second, and then it will yield those, right? It will not send as a single response or the single sentence. It will generate multiple responses. When this function is called, first Jodhpur will be sent, and then Hindi will be sent, then pronunciation will be sent, like that. Word by word, yielding will be done. This is to replicate our LLM functionality. आया समझ में सबको? We are just trying to mock the LLM. So we have written this function which gives as an output word by word output. Okay, yield token. Next, what next? The same function. First, I have defined as the session state. If it's empty, then it will create some string and some list, empty list. And now I'm saying if it has any messages, it will just iterate through and it will show on the screen. If it is not there, that's fine. If there are messages already there saved in the session, it will display all those messages on the screen. Now, next is to show some text input to the user. So the user can give his command, hi LLM or whatever. This will show the text box. And then if the user enters something, we have written that condition. It will show that message on the screen. At the same time, it will also save the message with the user key value pair role as the key, user as the value, and save it in the user session. Okay. And importantly, when it's st.chatMessage.ai, what it will do is we are calling this function now. Ideally, it should be LLM. And whatever user gives as an input, we are giving that as an input parameter. Although we are not using this input parameter, we are just using this multi-line statement. Okay. So this is a very long string. We are giving that as an input, right? This we can give as a user also, but right now we are not using this input parameter. We are using this hard-coded response. So what will happen? It will take this method will take this user input. It will go to the response generator, and this component which is called st.writeStream. This is our main area of focus. We can use st.writeStream to stream our data. Okay, and once whatever response we get from this one, it will get streamed on the UI. Let me show you, then it will make sense. So let me show you what the streaming means. If it is not yet clear, ChatGPT. You can see this is generating the word by word, right? Token by token, it will generate the response. See, so this is called streaming. Okay, let's run this application, which is Streamlit. So now you can see this streaming happened, right? Whatever I had in that. Okay, and my messages are also persistent. Got it? Without this particular component, I would have been getting this entire response in just one flash.
Yep.
Yeah,
Surendra,
please.
here we are not looping, right? The input messages from the user. So whenever the user enters messages here, it will completely execute the complete program, and again it will wait for it. This is how it works. Usually in the program, if you say, okay, if usually if I'm going to take multiple inputs, I need to put in a loop some conditions saying like until the user is responding. So we'll be taking the inputs, right? Here we don't have any conditions like that. So when I execute this through Streamlit, it will every time it executes the complete program from top to end.
Right.
Okay.
So whenever user is typing something, once it finishes typing, then and once the user enters, then it will start the execution. Right? I say hello, and then once I click on enter or maybe click here, then my generator function is being called.
Yeah, basically this program will be continuously running until you explicitly close it.
Right.
Every
right.
time you give the message, it will run the complete program.
It will re-execute.
Unlike, yes, I got it.
But what we have done is, in order to avoid in order to persist the previous messages, I'm storing all these messages in my session state.
You are putting it.
And
yes.
And
Sorry.
it's being iterated every time at the top.
Yes, you're going to the for loop and you're displaying the old
Exactly.
messages
Correct,
because you're
correct.
stored in the messages
Right.
as a list. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I got it.
All right. So that was on the streaming and data flow. Okay. So this we have already discussed. Let me iterate again. In Streamlit, the entire Python script is executed from top to bottom each time the user interacts with the application. For example, every time a widget is clicked, updated, or any other interaction occurs, Streamlit reruns the script. Even small interactions, clicking a button will cause the whole scripts to re-execute. Okay, so what is the problem associated with this one? Where we are worried? Number first, let's say we are using some APIs which are very costly, right? So what will happen each time? Although I have no requirement to call my API again, but since my code will get executed again, it will go again to my API, it will fetch something. So it will degrade my performance, it will slow down my application. At the same time, I also need to pay for my API calls, right? For example, in our last code, we were calling T5 model. So again, my T5 model will be called again and again, right? So that will put a burden on my infrastructure, my compute power, and it will, if it's a paid API, the cost will also increase, and also the performance, my application will also degrade, right? So redundant API calls, heavy running computations, all these are the problems. So how to tackle? With the help of session state and caching. Okay, session state we have already talked about. What we do is we create these variables. Let me see if I have something in the. Okay, so this is the execution model. Let me give you an example. So in this example, what we are doing is there is some function and we have some API URL. And this is, we are basically calling request.get and this API URL. We are getting the response from the API. If it is successful, I am returning the response. So what happens is this is the API data. This function is being called from here. If API data ASCII.write store data from the API. Now what will happen if there is a button or something? If I click on that, it will again come. It will say fetch data from API. It will go to the API. It will call the API and it will be invoked again. And then I will print the output on my screen. Okay, the Streamlit application rerun the entire Python script, clicking a user. This behavior can lead to the performance. To address this issue, this we have already seen. Okay, the session state which we just talked about, how does it work? Let's take a relook. Let's say if you have the same example, right, where we are calling the API, right? In the previous slide, we have seen how this API is again and again called, invoked. So now what we can do is, we can, whatever response which we get from the first time the API was invoked, I will take that response and put it in my session state. Okay, in the session state, I have defined API.data as a key. Earlier for chat messages, I was using the key as messages, which was having multiple messages. Now for storing the response from this function or API, I'm using API data and I am directly calling this function. Once this line executes, I have one key value pair. This is the key and the response as a value. Now I am checking if session.state.api data is already there, then why I should call this one? I will not call it, isn't it? There is a condition. If API data not in session state, then only it will call. Otherwise, it will take the value from the session state itself. So we can avoid recalling the API again and again. Got it? But there are certain things which we need to mind. This session state is a user specific thing. User has their own isolated session state, right? If I am using this application and you are also using from your laptop, then they are different sessions. My session will not work for you and they have to be different sessions. Okay. Persistent across reruns, whatever values I put in session state, they are persistent for the reruns. Okay. If I click any button, the values will remain there. Suitable for UI related data. It's a particularly useful for storing information related to the user interfaces such as user input, selections, or the state of the UI elements. Yeah, someone is asking some question. All right, so this we have seen. There is also something called as the callback functions. What are callback functions? Callback functions are basically the functions which are being called on some action. For example, the button which we were clicking, right? If you want to call a particular function on the click of that button, right? For that widget. So those components basically should support these triggers on click, on change, on submit. If these triggers are supported by the components which we are using, then what we can do is we can make use of some callback functions. Session state pairs well with the callback functions, which allow you to trigger specific code when a widget is interacted with. For example, you can update session state when a button is clicked. This is the function st.sessionState counter +1. Remember to use the key parameters with the widgets when you want to associate them with the session state value. This way you can use the value of the widget within the callback function. Okay, let me see if I have an example. Okay. Where is my, okay, this is chat input on submit handle, right? So in this example, what I'm doing is whenever user is typing something and if it has written some prompt and if it's basically submit or click, what it will do is it will go to this particular function. Okay, handle user input, and this function we have defined here. Okay, it will take the user input from the session. If it is there, it's doing some operation, right? So all in all, in nutshell, if I need to invoke some function, right, at some point of time, when some action or trigger occurs, for example, on click or on submit, and there was one more, if those three are supported by that particular component, then I can make use of this callback functions. Okay, so you can try yourself. Okay, I will share this piece of code and you can see how it works. Good enough? Let's cover the more important thing, which is Streamlit cache. So we have seen one way to tackle that logical flow problem where the Streamlit runs every time from top to bottom. One way is to use the session state, and the other way to handle that problem is Streamlit cache. So session related or the user specific things, for user specific things, we use session state. But if there are certain things which are application level, then we will use the Streamlit cache. How does it works? Let's take a look. Okay, what is caching? Caching is a mechanism that store the result of expansive function calls and return the cache results when the same inputs occurs again. Unlike session state, which is specific to a user, caching is shared across all the user sessions in a Streamlit application, right? Let's say we have some functionality where the stock price of a particular stock is being pulled. So now that price of that stock is basically same for all my users, right? If I have 1,000 users, so I don't want to, if one user has asked for the price of TCS stock, I don't want others to also, call the same function again and again. Again, it will go to the NSE website, it will pull the value of the TCS stock, and it rather, if someone has invoked that function, if the application is having that value, it will store in the application cache, Streamlit cache. That value will be stored, and then if another user is trying to get the value of TCS share, then it will give it from the cache itself instead of going to the API. Got it, guys? Since the price of the stock changes, I mean, it may not be the very best example, but still you can define some time that if within the 10 second, if someone else is calling, you can define that time to live, TTL setting. Okay. TTL 3600 means that values will be stored in the cache for these many seconds, and after that it will be flushed. So let's take a look. I think that will make more sense.
So, Surendra, here we are going to run this on our local host, right?
Yeah. So
So,
yeah, I mean, this is particularly useful when we are deploying our application on the some servers. Okay.
okay.
Streamlit
So
applications
we
can
can,
also, yeah.
yeah. So the Streamlit will work on the different servers as well, right?
Yes, yes. So Streamlit itself also has its cloud, right? So in just few clicks, you can deploy your application. This we will do in our future chapters. Once we develop full-fledged application, we will deploy it in the Streamlit cloud also. Okay, so there it will be more sensible. But right now, in order to learn it, let's have a look. This piece of code. So this same function, fetch API. This is my some website. And let's see if I comment this cache statement. So how to define that a particular value should be saved in the cache with the help of this decorator @st.cache. This function is basically bringing or calling this API, right? This API URL is being passed to this function. It will get the response and it will be returned, right? So right at top of this function, I need to put this decorator, which is like @st.cache data. If you give this decorator, then whatever value which will be returned, it will be automatically saved in my cache. Next time when it will be invoked, or if any other user is basically looking for the same value, first it will check if the value is there in the cache. If it is there, it will give the value right from there. Good enough. So I have just commented this particular statement. Now it's not caching. Let's see how it behaves basically. So Streamlit run app4.py. Okay, so this is the image of a dog. Okay. This API call was successful and it has generated this dog. Now, if I click on refresh, what will happen? Since that decorator is commented, this will go back and it will again invoke that API. This API basically give us some random photo of a dog. So now that API was invoked again and it has given me the photo of another dog, right? Some puppies are there. If I click on reload page, so this is basically not caching, and you can see it's taking some time, right, to load the page because it's going to the API, it's pulling the image and showing on the screen. So every time there is a different image. So let's say I want to get rid of this problem. I put st.cache data and let's rerun our application. Okay, this is my dog. If I click on reload, nothing is happening, right? Let's say I try it on another session, bring the same picture. Make sense, everyone? So this is how Streamlit cache works. Okay, so this is a very good example, right? To understand, let me go back to my PPT, callback functions. This cache is also of two types. Right now, we just use the cache data, isn't it? There is another thing called cache resources. So how they are different, right? So let's see. So when we are using cache data, basically this cache data is being used for some values which can be serialized basically, right? For example, if my function is returning some string or some JSON or anything which can be serialized. So what Streamlit does is it creates a copy of that function and it saves basically. Okay. Use this for functions that return serializable objects. It copies and serializes the return value, storing it in the cache, ideal for API calls where the data is same for all the users. Okay. But if my function is such that it's an object of, let's say, some AI object or ML object, right, which also get changed while the user is working on the application, isn't it? So in those cases where the return type of my function is some complex object which cannot be serialized, in that case we have to use cache underscore resource. Use this for functions that return non-serializable objects like machine learning models or database connections. It stores the exact returned object in the cache, right? So what it does is it saves the same object in the cache so that while the user is working on the application, if the state of that object changes, it also changes in the cache also. I know it's not easy to digest so much of information, but just remember for simpler objects like strings or the JSON outputs, we use the cache data. And for some complex documents, complex objects like ML or the database, we use cache resources. Okay. So let's see if there is any example. But you're clear, right? That if first of all, you should know the difference between the session state, when to use the session state and when to use the cache. And the cache itself is also of the two types. One is for serialized objects, other is for the non-serialized objects. Okay, what example I have? Caching with the decorators. So what it is doing now, I have a class. Okay, I have a class called AI model. This is my init method. It will sleep for 5 seconds. It will return the model. Then I have this function called what? Predict. Okay, it will return the prediction. This is my cache resource. Now I am using the cache resource. This is my function. It will load model. First, it will load this AI model instance. It will create the instance of this AI model class. It will return, and if it has some value, it will basically write model loaded. Okay, so let's first comment out this thing. Model loaded. Okay, so if I click on reload model, it will take some time. Model loaded, reload. It is taking some 5 seconds. Okay, in order to get rid of that, I can put cache resources, and if I execute that, so this is loading the model for the first time, and going forward, it will not take time. You can see. Okay, because it is taking the value from the cache resource. Okay, don't worry if you are not able to understand the difference. Just take this with a pinch of salt. Just remember, in order to save values in the cache, there are just two ways, and the cache is important when we have to store some values which are of the application level, which are for the across the users. And if you want to store something, you want to make some values persistent for a user specific things, then we will go for session state. Okay, I think I have this diagram also in my PPT. Yeah. Okay, caching stores the results of expensive function calls and returns the cache results when the same input occurs again. Unlike session state, is shared across all the sessions. Efficiency and you just remember this diagram. In the application cache, we have like session state for user 1. This is different for user 2, different for the user 3. But application cache is basically same for all these users. Okay, this green part. Got it? Tough day today, guys, or it's a okay day? Okay, so this time what I will do is I will also share this file also. Okay, whatever text which is being written, these notes, you can just go through these notes and then try. Anyone has any questions? See, guys, these are the certain things which nobody basically teaches. What I have seen is, but once you are through, or once at least you have heard about all these things, it's very easy for you to build the applications using Streamlit. Otherwise, even for a small thing, we need to struggle. We don't understand how this chat is working, how to make the sidebars and how to make our values persistent. We get confused. And every time we are copying code from some YouTube video that works for a day, next day it will not work, right? So if you know these basics, even it's very easy to understand anyone's code, right? Even if you are copy pasting, but still it will make sense for you guys why they have returned this session state, why they have returned the cache and things like that.
Surendra, can Streamlit connect to database also? SQL or some other
I think
database?
it should. Yeah, I think it should. Okay. I think yes, I have not tried. Definitely it should. connect, right? Postgres, MySQL, SQLite, MongoDB, Snowflake, almost everything is supported.
Yeah, because while let's say building any applications or anything, maybe that is required.
Definitely. I mean, I told you, right? There are some websites or applications which are running even in the production with this Streamlit, because the Streamlit guys are also making it stronger and stronger. They are making it robust so that not only for POCs, it can also be used. I had some examples, but I need to see. There were websites which are running on the Streamlit also. Okay, so that is it. And you were asking about, let me try that
Surendra,
portal.
one quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
If its caching is going to be common for all the users using this application, so what are the queries if I put a model where I'm going to using my context, I'm going to get the responses, right?
Mhm.
So will that going to create any problem for the other users because
Yeah.
my
So I mean,
context
this
will be
is
different?
this is very good question. So let me tell you how this basically works. Cache thing works is uh, whenever it basically stores any value in the cache, right? So what it does is it
Mm-hmm.
basically checks if the input for the function is exactly same, and even the function is also exactly same, then only it will be a unique value. Getting? If someone is calling the
Yep.
same function with some different parameters, obviously my result should have to be different. Getting? So it stores while storing the output, it also stores what was the input of that function. And there are a couple of properties which are being hashed and stored. Okay. And
Okay.
whenever
Okay.
other,
Okay.
yeah, got it.
Yeah,
It
but if
has,
in fact
mm,
if
mm.
somebody answers questions the same question, the answer whatever the is there in the cache only will get come back, right, for them.
Yeah. That should be right.
Okay.
Why to
Yeah,
invoke the,
that's fine.
yeah,
Again, yeah, got it.
again, correct. Okay. So let me see if I can log in, because I had problem with logging in into my this account. I don't know why it gives bad requests. I am able to log in on my office laptop, but not on this one. No, I don't know what happened. Anyway, what happens is there is basically Azure AI Foundry, right? Azure, there is something called Azure AI Foundry. If you go there, there is a link for it. If you go there, you will see the different models, right? So you just need to select the model of your choice. For example, I want to deploy GPT-4o mini. I will select that model and I just click on deploy. What it will do is it will deploy that model, and there will be certain keys, right? Some keys for authentication, those will be there. You just take some sample code out of it. They also show some sample code how to connect with that model. So you just copy paste that piece of code and put it in your VS code. Okay, and give also set those keys which are being there at the Azure, and then you should be able to inference your model which is deployed on the Azure. Okay, so it's as simple as
So the
that.
VS Code will be launched from there itself, right? Azure portal.
No, I mean
Or
VS Code can be on your laptop, right? From here, just like I am invoking my OpenAI models, which are deployed somewhere in the OpenAI app, I mean platform, right? Similarly, my model, which is deployed in my Azure account, that will be invoked from right here, right? This is my client. I will say there are a couple of properties, for example, the deployment name and my endpoint. Once I provide those endpoint and deployment name and application name and the key, it will be able to connect with my model and I can build my applications. Once my applications are built, I can deploy them on my Azure account also. Right. So there are different ways to deploy. You can deploy it as an Azure apps. You can, create its API endpoint, right? You can expose it as a API basically, right? You can
Yeah, I will
containerize your
try. Okay, and I
application.
will give
Yeah,
you a call in case I face any issues. Okay.
sure, sure, sure. This thing is not working, but I don't know why this is giving this weird response. Too many requests. I will try to create
Maybe
some
try
other.
clearing
Yeah.
caches.
Okay. Right. I mean, in private, I don't think cache is.
Yeah.
Okay, I will try. Okay, I will try to create maybe some video so that you can, it's easy for you guys to watch the video and follow the steps. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the exercises, guys? You want me to give you the responses? I mean, in the advanced LangChain, we had this exercise where we had to create the wiki blog, conversational chain, do all these exercises. Otherwise, I can provide you the code, but it will not help you. You first try yourself, and then I will give you the solutions. Okay. Any other point, everyone? Anyone? The way of teaching or the topics or related to anything? Any concerns? All good? All
good.
bad?
Yeah, all good,
All
so far,
good
all good.
so far.
Chalo, good to hear that.
So, Sindhya, like one thing, so what is this Microsoft Copilot Studio?
Yeah, so Microsoft
So,
Copilot. Mm-hmm.
so is
So
it kind of a chatbot that we can actually build for our application?
just a second. So chatbot, Microsoft Copilot is again they have created. Can you mute yourself? There is a bit disturbance. Okay, so there is one thing that Microsoft Copilot. So what you can do is you can integrate this coding assistant, right? And you can integrate the Microsoft Copilot coding assistant in your VS Code, which will help you to give you the hints. Okay, so I have done that already. And what you can do is I created one video on that as well, how to basically the different steps, right? Okay, so you can follow these steps and you can integrate the Microsoft coding assistant with your Visual Studio. Okay, so that it will give you the hints, right? So if you click on enter, if I write something, it will give me some predictions. So who is doing this? This Copilot is doing basically all these things. Okay, so you can go to that video. On top of that, if you click on that, if you want to, rewrite something, for example, in the app.py files. So right now, in this Microsoft Copilot also uses GPT models in the background. Okay, and if you want to switch, by default it uses GPT 4.1. If you want to use some other models, for example, Cloud Sonnet, you can just switch to different models. Okay, O3 Mini or whatever. So that is one thing. You can choose the model of your choice. And then right now it is saying that whatever question I will ask, that will be on top of app.app4.py file. So this is my context. So my question, along with my question, this file will be sent to the LLM and it will give me some response. For example, let's say what I should do, add a button on this page, which when user clicks should should write on a screen. Hello world. Okay. So if I give that, what it will do is, along with my prompt, it has also sent this file as a context and it will give me the response. Okay. So it has said, okay, this piece of line you have to write. Got it? So with the help of this assistant, first of all, it can give me the hints while I'm writing my code. And if you have already, there is some piece of code you have got from somewhere, and if you want to modify, then also you can do it, right? So you can also change this context. If you want to understand all these files, what you can do is you can just select these files also, right? If you want to select some folders, some files, so that all those will be sent to your AI assistant as in context. Whatever question you will ask, that will be on top of it. For example, if I say, write a nice documentation. Okay, your manager has asked you to create design documents. You are saying, write a nice design document for this file. Okay, this you can do for your entire workspace also. What it will do is it will create some earlier days. You remember, right? We used to have the project in the waterfall model where we used to say, okay, this is our requirement phase. For the 2 months, we will take requirements from the client. Then we will do the design. Then we will do the coding. And then we say the requirements were not captured correctly, right? So now the documentation has been made very simpler. Just write the prompt and it will create this design document, right? You can say your manager, okay, I will take 2 days to make the design document, and you can get it in just 2 seconds, right? Code structure, right? Functional requirements. You just give it a prompt in what manner you are looking for, right? If you have a template, provide your template. I want these many headers in my design document, and then it will create functional requirements, model loading, user interface, code structure, right? Everything it is giving. You can just copy paste it and you can give it to your manager or client. Okay. but these are uh yeah, good enough. Okay,
Yeah,
so yeah, go ahead.
so this is like Microsoft 365 Copilot Studio.
Hmm,
So I got this one in the VS Code, but there is one more thing that is Microsoft 365 Copilot Studio.
exactly. So what they have done is this Microsoft has launched their studio as well. So if you log into the Azure also, Azure portal, there will be and Microsoft Copilot Studio. There you can create your own applications. You can create your own agents basically. And they have created that platform for different type of user. For example, their main motive is to create a platform where the business users can also create the some agents who are not well aware of the technical things. They can also create their own agents. They can select the source of the data, what they want to build, right? There is a low code or no code kind of things, right? With the minimal code and the minimum knowledge of the coding, even the business users can create the agents, and they have their different flavors. For example, Microsoft 365 Copilot is a different thing. Copilot Studio in the Azure is a different thing. But their main intention is to create different platforms for different set of users so that they can build their own agents. And how these agents are different from the agent which we can create in the LangGraph, these agents can basically get integrated with the Microsoft platform. In the Microsoft 365, what do we have? We have like Microsoft Teams, we have your SharePoints, and we have your Microsoft, what you call that? Mm, there are different products of the Microsoft. So with the help of their platform, you can integrate basically if your file is lying on your SharePoint, and if there is another file which is landing on the SharePoint, your agent will get triggered. It will take some action. If there is an email which has been received in your Microsoft Outlook, and if you want to fetch some entities out of it, you want to do some NLP task, it can be done automatically with the help of these agents. So it's give you an platform which works well with the Microsoft products, integrate well with the Microsoft products, and you yourself can create agents with the help of Microsoft Teams and other products. Got it?
Yeah, so can we give the access? I mean, can we create a kind of a chatbot kind of thing, and then can we give our project files to that in order to read those and then get some insights on that? Can we use it for the project purpose?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. I mean, it basically depends on the licenses as well. So if you are working with the company and if that company has also taken Microsoft licenses, 365 licenses, and for these co-pilots also, I think there are some different licenses. If you have all those, you can build your agents, right, for your company, right? And those agents can also be published basically so that the other users or the other employees in your company can also use or use those agents basically. So yes, you can do that provided you have those licenses. Okay, so I don't think that's an open source, right?
Yeah,
So
so there is a, I mean, try it for free trial. I have it. I mean, when I
okay.
open
hmm
that site, yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I got confused.
Yeah, you can, I mean, if you have something free or available, you can also try there. But definitely it will have some limitations and
Okay,
okay.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else has any question before we close the session and your weekend? All good, everyone? My humble request is to, keep on doing these exercises, keep on revising, keep on building something. The best way to learn is to build something. Right now, we have the foundation. From the next class, we will see what is RAG, and then we will start creating the applications since we already know all the foundation blocks, right? Good enough, everyone? Any questions? No questions? Shallow then. Enjoy your rest of the weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next week. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.